Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. So I'm really excited about having our customers up on stage in just a minute here. This morning, we're going to hear from the Defense Media Activity, the U.S. Department of Defense's direct line of communication for news and information to U.S. forces worldwide. Defense Media Activity is a valued Adobe customer and a true illustration of the One Adobe story. Through an ELA that includes Creative Suite 5 Master Collection, Adobe DPS Enterprise Edition, and Adobe Site Catalyst, we were able to assist the agency in creating ordinary interactions into more valuable digital experiences for the military, their families, and the general public. Let's roll the video and see an example of this, and then we'll have our customers come up on stage.
The Defense Media Activity serves its audience using a variety of media platforms, from broadcast television and radio to print to internet and social media. The DMA is a consolidation of many diverse components and organizations, and also trains public affairs and visual information students at the Defense Information School. In total, the Defense Media Activity has more than 2,500 employees working stateside and around the world. The DMA is also a fully functional production facility, including broadcast studios and control rooms, video editing, design and animation, audio recording, live remote and field production resources, satellite downlink and uplink capabilities, web operations, and the underlying IT infrastructure necessary to support all of the Defense Media Activity's diverse components. The employees of the Defense Media Activity include service members, government civilians, and contractors, all dedicated to providing news to U.S. service members and families wherever they are.
So Lieutenant Greg Reeder is, let's give it up, Lieutenant Greg Reeder is the Director of Marine Corps Production for the Defense Media Activity and Editor-in-Chief, Marines Magazine. Joining Greg today is Debbie Bates. Debbie is the Founder and Chief Communications Specialist of Bates Creative Group. Please join me in welcoming Greg and Debbie up on stage today.
Well, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay, well, since you can hear me okay, I just want to let you know that I'm from the government and I'm here to help. So, and that may not be very popular these days, but I do want to thank you for the opportunity to come and talk about what we're doing and how we're using the Adobe tools, and give you a little bit of insight of how those things integrate. As you saw in the video, we talk about the Defense Media Activity. I represent the Marine Corps, and if we look at it from Adobe corporate perspective, DMA is our parent company. We were pretty much joined up with the DMA as an acquisition, so the Marine Corps is one component of the DMA, and I'll get more into detail as we go on. But basically what we have to do, and our job as Marines within the Marine component, is communicate. Whether we're talking about brothers and sisters, best friends, Marines on the air, on sea, and on land. If we're talking about humanitarian operations, mourning those we've lost, talking about our athletes, our ambassadors, our firefighters, families, scrubbing the decks, or standing post, our job is to tell the Marine Corps story and find the best way to communicate. And using the Adobe tools, we're able to do that a lot better. And the DMA makes it possible. We have representatives and locations all around the world, and I want to point out the ships on this slide are not to scale. We don't have that big of ships in the Navy. But from Pennsylvania to the Pentagon, from California to Korea, Japan, and Europe, we have elements of the DMA all across the world that help us communicate to service members. The Marine Corps is just one component of that. And as you can see on the slide here, we have a lot of Adobe involvement in everything that we do in all those different agencies. We have the Stars and Stripes newspaper. I don't know if anybody's seen that newspaper or heard of it. It's been in existence since World War II. It has a daily print run of about 420,000 copies. And it communicates using a variety of Adobe tools, InCopy for content management, the entire Creative Suite. We also have the Imagery Management Operations Center that has points on East Coast and West Coast that handles all our ingest, storage, archiving, and tagging of images so that we can send them out to the general public, clear images for release, and store images for our own use. They use an entire variety of Adobe tools in the master collection. And we also have the production houses, which I represent. But it's not just the Marine Corps. We also have the Army, Navy, and Air Force that are heavily involved in the use of master collection, as well as our Joint Hometown News Center that handles news releases to all the domestic markets, our Broadcast Distribution Center that does the same for the TV outlets, and then our Armed Forces Radio and Television Network and the Armed Forces Network that handled cable and television programming throughout the world. And Adobe's there to help make those things happen in many ways. And I went too fast for my speaker notes. So how do we connect? So this is how we're laid out here. If we look at it from a chain of command, we answer to the President and the Secretary of Defense. But as you can see through those arrows there, we get different guidance from different people on how we're able to tell our story. So that's how we stack up in the grand scheme of things of that organization that you saw represented throughout the world. So specifically what I'm in charge of is the Marine Corps Production Directorate. And our mission is to make sure that we're talking to Marines, retirees, family members, people interested in being Marines, and all those people connected to Marines throughout the world and able to tell their story and communicate it. And we do that through a lot of different products, digital publishing being just one. We have the major flagship program, which is Marines.mil, which is the main website for the entire Marine Corps. We also have Marines TV, which is the broadcast arm that we put out through cable outlets and through YouTube. We have the entire social media aspect, which is currently the largest in the Department of Defense. We have nearly 1.7 million fans on Facebook, about 75,000 followers on Twitter, and we have a very, very active and vociferous community on those different platforms. And then lastly is the magazine and all our digital productions. We have an online platform through WordPress that we use for the magazine and for our blog site. And then most importantly, what we're talking about today is the ability to do digital publishing through the iPad, which you saw a little sneak peek of in our introductory video. But none of this would be possible without the creative genius and design of Debbie Bates and her team. So I'll introduce her and she can explain how she fits into the mix.
Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today with all of you in Adobe. It's a great pleasure to share our vision and share what we do with you. Bates Creative Group, I'm the president of Bates Creative Group, and we've been working with the U.S. Marine Corps and the DMA for about 9 years. We bring to the table our creative vision. We design the magazine, produce it in print and into its digital properties. So we'll tell you all about our story here today.
So as you can see there, nothing starts until we're able to make a change. And it may be easier for us because in the Marine Corps, as you can kind of see in the slide, sometimes change is just as easy as telling somebody to do it, right? But we do have a lot of challenges in making sure that change happens. And a good example to illustrate this of why change was important to us goes all the way back to 1942. There was the Director of Public Affairs, his name was Brigadier General Denig, and he was having a hard time finding quality journalists to tell about the Marine Corps involvement in the war. So he figured, well, he'd turn to the source. He would go and find local journalists in the Washington, D.C. area. He told those folks that if they wanted to cover the war, he had a great way, just join the Marine Corps and he'll make it happen. So a lot of people took him up on that opportunity because they couldn't get into the military and they wanted to serve. One of those gentlemen was Sam Stravinsky. He couldn't get into the military because of poor eyesight, but General Denig gave him the chance and he jumped on it. And over the next few months, he covered epic battles throughout the war and he told thousands of stories. Sam said his job was just to tell those thousands of stories so that people could learn about what the Marines were doing. And his actions resulted in actually several Marines being awarded the Medal of Honor because he was able to capture their story. But then we fast forward to 2004, and there was a battle of Fallujah, and there was Sergeant Peralta was there. He was wounded, and he noticed that a grenade was thrown. He covered the grenade with his body, sacrificed himself, and saved his Marines. That story was told because Lance Corporal Camara was there as a combat correspondent and captured that story and told it online. The difference between Stravinsky and Camara was that Stravinsky told thousands of stories. Camara told one story that we can tell to millions of people because we now have a means and a medium to do that. And so that's the driving change for us, is to leverage the tools in the best way possible to tell as many people as we can about the great things that their service members are doing. But we couldn't start it without goals. And much like any organization, these are the foundations for communications, to be reliable, timely, credible, and accurate. But in today's day and age, many times, time is the enemy of accurate. You have a lot of time in the military that you want to make sure that you get the details right, and you get surpassed by somebody that put it out faster with maybe not the right details. So we have to find a way to tell our story faster, better, to a wider scope, and it's no different for any other company. It's the same thing that we have to overcome. So there had to be a lot of change, and we try to adjust to that change over time. So Debbie will talk to you a little bit about those changes.
All right, so up here on screen, we have a little bit of a graphic representation of a timeline. So Marines Magazine was launched in 1918, and the mission of that magazine has pretty much stayed the same since its initiation. It is to serve those Marines in the military today. Nothing really has been driving the change since 1918 until you see that change become very rapid once you hit around the year 2000. That rapid change is based on the adoption of new technologies and the delivery of content through those tools at a very rapid pace. Imagine how this will continue. Imagine how quickly those changes have taken place as we move from 2000 onward. Adobe is a conduit into making this rapid change in publishing and communicating our content to our constituents possible. So since 1918, when the magazine was launched, there was slow change, only basically through design and a little bit of content for the first, 50-some years. The magazine and the design changed only a little bit, but it wasn't until the internet when we began to see the dramatic change. In 2003, Bates Creative Group became part of the team, and we redesigned the magazine, reconstituted the content to be much more dynamic and more interesting to its reader. It's about engagement. Today, content and delivery of content is about engaging your audience and meeting them where they are. So in 2004, we developed the first website for Marines Magazine using Flash as its platform, but it was limited only to the current issue at the time. So when the next issue of Marines Magazine came out, the previous issue was pulled down. No archivability. Why did we change at that point? The internet and the users demanded that change for us to give them their content. Then we move up to 2009, where we redesigned the magazine yet again. We look at more additional content that is more dynamic, quicker read, what our readers and users needed at that time. We did a complete website redesign using HTML and WordPress that allowed us to have our content searchable and archivable. We also launched a new blog for the Marines. In 2011, today, we're using Adobe DPS to produce Marines Magazine for the tablet. Our first edition in 2009 was using Xcode, and now we're full force ahead with your platform. What about the future? The future is about meeting our user and readers' needs where they are and giving them the content that they desperately desire. We need to do that through all of our platforms and multiple devices, including mobile. We need to establish leadership as a communicator and a content provider and be much more than status quo. And we need to reach the Marines Magazine and broaden that reach of Marines Magazine and content across the brand and across the world.
Okay, so a lot of what we do is we try and blur the lines. That's what I tell the staff all the time, that we have to find ways to get our content across all mediums possible so that the web supports print, so if we had print that went away, and digital supports social media, and all those channels hooked together. One thing as a side note that I thought was interesting to note, since I'm here in Vegas, and I'm sure you guys have done well out at the tables, think back to the picture of that first magazine, Marines Magazine in 1918. I saw another picture. There was a seaplane that was delivering those magazines to Marines on Quantico. And as I read through the report from the American Library Association, it said because of all the millions of service members coming back on World War I, they wanted to reintroduce them and find best ways to get them information. One of the reasons was to prevent much gambling on ship. So I'm sorry we didn't have a lot of magazines to prevent much gambling while we were here. But anyway, they were trying to find new ways to communicate. But none of it would have been possible without teamwork. So an interesting story for me, I've run the Marine Corps Marathon a few times. The first time I was going to run the marathon, I was excited about it, I was worried about it, but I asked my wife for some support and some teamwork. I asked her if she'd bring my sons out to watch me run the race. She thought about it, she goes, "No, I'll just meet you at the hospital." So although, she had a different idea of teamwork than I did, she was still part of the team. And so I show you this next picture that also is part of teamwork. And it's a picture of a Marine MP getting sprayed into the eye with pepper spray. And so I'm sure that's not a very fun experience. And it wasn't there to harm the Marine as much as it was to let him feel what it was like for the pepper spray so that he could work through the pain. And so a lot of ways we have the same situation with Adobe and internally to DMA. Nothing is simple, right? And I don't say that as a bad thing. That's a good thing, because the point is that teamwork, if everything was easy and everything was just the way it was supposed to be, we wouldn't necessarily need teamwork to make it happen. Regardless of whether things work right out of the box, whether they're configured exactly right the first time, the point to take away for Adobe is the experience we've had is everybody that supports us at Adobe is a strong team player and wants to find a way to make it work. And that's been the best experience we've had, is making sure that those things connect and that we find better ways to take it to the next step and to be successful. So really our focus to win, like your theme of this year's conference. But we had to overcome hurdles. So teamwork and pain, we had some hurdles involved. And just like any other company, we had communication, internal communication. I've been in the Marine Corps for 26 years, and there are always going to be communication issues. But there are other communication problems with having people understand that there's a new way to communicate. It's not just about putting out a press release, putting it online, and expecting everybody to rush to find out what your message is. You have to go to where the people are now. There's a new way to communicate. And so we have to overcome other hurdles, like demographic hurdles, where we have 80% of our Marine Corps are millennials. They have a different idea of how to communicate. They do not know what the dial tone is on a phone. You just dial and press the green button. I mean, there's a different way that we understand. There are no newspapers in their minds normally. I mean, we have to understand that there's different ways to communicate. We also have hundreds of years of tradition that we have to overcome sometimes to make sure that that change happens, and all the while making sure that we have a quality message and that we remain on brand so that we can really make sure that we're telling the best story possible. But then there are other challenges. There are organizational challenges, information awareness, information security, information technology. All these things were built to protect and to keep information close hold when we want to find the best way to get it out there to everybody in the most open access possible. We also have other challenges like integrating different tools with web trends, or even going through the App Store process with Apple, which sometimes can feel like the pepper spray slide, right? So there are things that we have to overcome. But other publishers and designers and creatives that we talk to have all the same challenges that we do. So from Adobe's perspective, we want to feel like a good team so that we're exposing some of those challenges that we have, and I think that's been good overall, a good experience.
All right, so Greg has talked to you about some of the Marines' challenges in working with Adobe. I can talk a little bit more about the challenges from Bates Creative Group's perspective and our implementation of branding. We use this for Marines and for other clients as well. Some of the challenges have been keeping up as an early adopter, moving forward into a new era while keeping our staff trained, the ability to accommodate that increased workload. Moving from beta to current DPS has been a challenge. Understanding how to navigate the Adobe sales team and get our questions answered by the right person. But I have to say, they're always there to help us. It's about finding the right person with our questions. We need to look at how this applies as a cost-effective solution to our other clients who need this solution. Some of our clients need that paywall, so they need the enterprise-level solution, but they're still printing their magazine. They're still using the web, so the budget may not be there to accommodate that enterprise-level solution. But they need to have this solution for their dual publishing needs. Okay, so how do we overcome the challenges?
If you look at this slide there, there's a lot of detail on there. The big takeaway is there's a lot of different properties, a lot of different products that we put out to blur the lines, like I referred to in an earlier slide. How do we get that one message across multiple channels to meet the audience where they are, to meet them where they're looking for content or where they're sharing content or where they're building communities? So we have a lot of activity that goes on. But the most important takeaway there is the number 3. That's the number of Marines that we have that manage all those properties. And those aren't people that are digital specialists or trained in editorial or are trained in social media. Those are Marine combat correspondents that come there and they find out that now they're going to be part of the digital team, or now they're going to be part of the social team. So when we add them all together, there are really 8 Marines total that make all of those communications possible between our magazine and all our online properties. So there's some other folks in the office, but these are really the core that make those things take off. And in total, because of all their interactions, those small amount of people are able to communicate to more than 3 million people every week. So they're able to use those multiple capabilities to talk about what we do to the largest audience in the Department of Defense and the first one to go forward with a digital publication. So now we'll get down on the nitty-gritty of how we pulled that off. So there was the solution. Here are all the tools that we use to pull off the digital publication. So we have, of course, the first top 3 that we've been implementing right now, and a little bit on Site Catalyst and the data as we go through. But we were able to put out the magazine, and we'll see a demo in a second of how that happens. We use WordPress to use the digital online delivery, and we also use ZMags to do a pseudo print delivery online, Basecamp for our content management system, and then elements of Microsoft SharePoint, and then an open source system that we'll be going to for a web delivery called .NET Nuke, and then of course we promote it all through social media. But the takeaway and I wanted to bring up for Adobe, is much like I think it was Kevin that won the $270,000 on the penny slots that I tried to win too. It didn't work. But it's kind of like when he goes out to buy his new Mercedes, right? He's not going to go out and buy a Mercedes with no tires, right? So when we put together this solution, we would like to be able to put it all together in one place. So I know Adobe has content management capabilities. A lot of those things that we list there, we can now find a new way to combine all those to do it as a one-stop shop for us to be able to manage things from cradle to grave. So now we talk about the capabilities. Debbie's going to give you a demo.
Okay, I'm ready for the demo. I'm hoping all of this works seamlessly for you. All right, so you'll see our most current issue here of Marines Magazine on the tablet. And on the cover, we're using some HTML to bring in our ticker for some of our headlines throughout the magazine. We also are using buttons and overlays within InDesign to bring in our captions for our great feature photo area. So we have terrific photography to work with when we do Marines Magazine from all over the world, capturing the images of what the Marines are doing in action. We enjoy all of the use of the overlays and doing 360-degree views of scopes and weapons and uniform components. We're doing embedded video, as you'll see here.
There is. There you go, got one.
Woohoo!
We found out through analytics as well that these are some of the most clicked on things throughout the tablet application is this embedded video. Just going to take you through a couple of features here. We're also using buttons to show different views for illustration, positions. Gives us a lot of opportunity throughout this publication. The other thing that we like a lot is that the views work very great for us. We do actually design the magazine in both vertical and horizontal view so that we can keep a dynamic visual flow from top to bottom as we continue on through our features. We're also leaving those visual cues at the top and the bottom of the page so that the user knows to continue strolling, to continue on through that story. Typography is very important to us, and the experience on the tablet being readable and interactive is very important to us. Then we have this great interactive map where we're showing photos and captions from around the world for where our Marines are in action today.
Great.
So now we get to the good stuff. Why Adobe? I can talk about this because I am a private entity. So why did we choose Adobe? It's great for us to be able to work with one organization that has the power in their tools for us to publish across all of these platforms, from print to web to the tablet. It really does provide us a common set of tools that designers understand, a step-by-step process to get us there. Our first tablet edition, as I had mentioned, was built using Xcode. We chose to switch to Adobe so that we could keep those processes all in-house and be working with a set of tools that was familiar to us. This not only will save us time, but also money and training, and create a much more streamlined workflow. The ongoing training in a changing environment is challenging. You guys are upgrading every day and giving us new tools to work with, so staying on top of that is very important for us. We love that it's built on an HTML and common design standards. It supports us resourcing across all publishing channels. Our creative standard is very high at Bates Creative Group, as we know it is with Adobe, and that's another reason why we choose Adobe. There's a cultural fit. We speak the same language. That's important to us. Adobe has great customer service. As I said, there have been challenges, but they're always there to support us. They really, really do care that we get our products out there and that they're doing what we need them to do and reaching our audience. We want to thank the Adobe team there for doing this and helping us get through this process. Derek Neal, Jerry Silverman, Joan Heed, Matt Lawn, and Scott Worthington have all been key players in making this work for us. At Bates Creative Group, we use all of the Adobe products across all of the platforms, and then, of course, the enterprise-level solution with the Marines. And we couldn't be happier with that relationship. Think about other opportunities for Adobe to reach out for small business, outside the government and for commercial use. There's an opportunity that is very broad. Think of creative use cases to get your customers' toes wet. Think beyond a magazine. Think beyond your reader or your user. Think about marketing. Think about the opportunity to grow. Today I've read a lot about all about publishing is all about marketing content today. So think about this a little bit differently and how you use this as a marketing tool or represent this as a marketing opportunity for your clients. Think about other uses for, can we go back a slide, please? Think about other uses for your clients, such as white papers or source books or other kinds of documents that could be integrated using video and other kinds of content. Be on the leading edge with this marketing message to your users. Think about organizations that might have those smaller budgets that aren't ready necessarily to give up print quite yet. Put it out there as a one-off issue or a best of annual for that particular client so they can see the metrics and see what the analytics can provide them to reach their audience in a different way and to grow their membership or grow their constituency. Get out there with what's hot and traction in media today. Use those social media tools through these digital publishing initiatives to really drive revenue and to drive new engagement with your readers.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got a nice slide here that's a quote that I always like to use, that data is like a bikini. What it shows you is important, but what it doesn't is absolutely crucial, right? So we have to find a way to understand what we're doing, and you can't manage what you can't measure, and so the Adobe tools are giving us ways to make that possible. And so we take a look at some of our data, and we try and apply what everybody tries to apply when they look at stuff. Regardless of what the data points are, how complex the graph is, none of us like to see this graph, right? We all try and strive for this one. We want to make sure the numbers are going the right direction. And the only way to be able to do that is to understand how the data is interacting and what you're doing. A lot of people talk about ROI. You know, what's your ROI? We don't really have an ROI because we have a free magazine. We don't have any intent to make revenue. We just want to tell our story. So somebody else once made a point that says, well, if you want to know what ROI means, what's the ROI of your mom, right? You can't measure mom, But you know that she provides a valuable service and she cares about you, and what you do has a direct impact from what your mom has done, right? So to us, data is a lot like that. We want to understand how important it is what we're saying and if people are really using it. So if we take a look at that and try and apply to what we do, we look at when the magazine site went online as an example of how we use data. Generally speaking, if we look at the graph without knowing anything else, the number of views increased over time. That's a good thing. And we put out the blog. As soon as we put it out there, it starts to take off. Of course, there's a lot of benefit of already having a recognizable brand that helps you grow this, but the bottom line is we're able to measure results. So it looks pretty good. Then we put it in context. Those small lines on the bottom are the magazine and blog, and that purple line represents our Facebook audience. Right? It's not necessarily apples to oranges, but on the one hand, it looks like when we take a look at data, what it doesn't show you that's absolutely crucial here is that it looks like Facebook is dwarfing all the other channels. When in reality, if we look at those deltas between those spikes in the magazine line are when we promoted specific stories through our Facebook audience and brought them full circle back to our digital products. So we have great capabilities by leveraging all these tools, and we wouldn't be able to understand that without having the ability to do data and data analysis and understand correlations and causes and effects. So if we look at cause and effect, how many people are familiar with the Mentos trick? Show of hands, right? Pretty good deal. I have a lot of kids and they all love the Mentos trick, right? But why they love it is the same reason why we like data. You take that one small Mento and you put it in a 2-liter bottle and you get immediate reaction and response and gratification for that one thing you did. So the other day when we were able to get DPS analytics turned on, that was my Diet Coke and Mentos moment, right? So I go in there and it didn't matter whether it was bad or good news, I saw an outcome, right? And so what we were immediately able to see was what people were looking at. Debbie mentioned in the demo, what they weren't looking at, how long they were looking at things, all those tremendous things that we just guessed before is now available to us by the tools that you provide. And it's a tremendous feeling when you get that feedback. So one would assume that if one Diet Coke bottle is good, then a whole bunch of Diet Coke bottles must be good, right? So this is not a picture of students at Hogwarts, kind of looks like at the bottom there, but a whole bunch of students trying to get the world record of the number of Mentos bottles. So if we put it in the same correlation, the way we're looking at it is we have analytics on DPS, and then we have Site Catalyst, which is going to give us a whole bunch of Diet Coke explosions, and we're looking forward to all the data that we get from that as well. But with all these things, we keep trying to look to the future. I mentioned change back before in a few slides and the teamwork that we have, but we try and keep looking for new ways to communicate because the market is ever growing. With the growth of Facebook, we'll soon reach 1 billion people. Within a few years, we'll be several billion people worldwide that are communicating through digital means. It's an endless opportunity. So we want to continue to expand. We're going to be moving on to the Android tablet. That'll probably be coming out this week or next. We'll be coming out onto the Amazon or to the Kindle Fire soon. Mobile delivery and development. And I put in a plug now that you've seen the demo. Please go download Marines Magazine from the App Store. You can just search on Marines Magazine and you can get that. But we want to find bigger and better ways to make sure that we're finding ways to look through to the future and be focused to win, just like Adobe. So this is who we are and where to find us. I'd also like to personally thank Derek, Jerry, Joan, and Matt and Scott for helping us make all this possible. And thanks for having us today. So.
If you sit there. That was terrific.
Thank you.
Maybe just a couple of questions. That was really terrific. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here. I saw the analytics, and we're very much into the data ourselves here at Adobe, but I was just thinking, Greg, what was sort of what did you hear about when you launched the digital version of the magazine? What was sort of the qualitative feedback that you were getting about Marine Corps Magazine now online?
Well, yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I mean, the first, I guess, reaction we got was from everybody else of how did you do that, right? Because there's so many government rules and regulations that many times we're ahead of the policy. So we're out in front of people that have told us what we can and can't do, and they don't quite know how to respond. So we just kept pressing forward. But as soon as we were able to release it, we got tremendous response from the people that were interested in getting the magazine. But of course, their next questions were, when on the Android, when on the iPhone? Right. So it keeps us moving. It was a great experience.
And in the battlefield, or in these camps that are far off and around the world, does the Marine Corps, these young people, do they have Kindle Fires and iPads, and is that the way it is now?
Well, and that's an interesting challenge we have. This year, the Secretary of Defense decided that we would no longer produce a print product. So that does potentially cut off those audiences. But on the flip side, there are digital capabilities, wireless capabilities, communication capabilities that are out there. They're either put up personally for the Marines themselves to connect on devices, or they have shared, they're called morale, welfare, and recreation tents where they can go and get that content.
Okay. And Debbie, maybe you saw we started off maybe fortuitously with our Martha Stewart video right before you both came up. And then you talked a little bit about maybe thinking about DPS in other ways as well during the presentation. How do you see DPS, outside of Department of Defense and some of your other clients? What do you see are the opportunities?
Well, I think it's really an opportunity to think about the content that you need to deliver. It's all about the content and its delivery today, and how do you use whatever that content is to get out there. So easily could be retail and catalog and being able to import video into those catalogs, or large corporate clients being able to do their on-site collateral for events and trade shows on the tablet using DPS. So again, you could have podcasts or video included from some of those speakers in your sessions. Also for nonprofits and associations, it could be annual reports, it could be, again, a one-off issue that some of their content to help engage new audiences. One of our other clients is the National Parks Conservation Association, and we've been trying to get them involved in doing a special edition magazine that has wonderful photography, potentially video of national parks around the country. And they could grow membership by doing that. They have a membership of 200 and some thousand now, but they tend to be older. So let's reach those new younger members by using these technologies and getting our content out there and getting our toes wet and introducing them to us.
And Greg, are you guys leading the charge? I mean, are there any other agencies that you see that are using a digital magazine edition? Like you mentioned Stars and Stripes, do they have their own digital magazine edition yet?
Not yet. They're looking into it. I do know that the next folks that are ready to go or that are preparing to go is the Air Force. They have a magazine as well, so they're going to press forward and use the DPS to publish their product as well.
So have the other agencies in DOD, the other organizations been looking at your magazine and saying,
yeah, we've gotten several calls from the National Guard, some others outside the Department of Defense, but in government that want to know how we pulled it off, what our advice is, and the mix of tools we're using.
And what about reaction of families? I mean, I guess when Marines are in far-off places, do their families maybe get this? Is there much uptake with the families on the digital version of the magazine?
Well, I think when we couple those two together, and we talked about blurring the lines, when we have the ability to deliver digitally, we put it out online as well, and so they complement each other. And one of the best decisions that we could make, being the government, it's very scary sometimes to be able to allow open commenting on everything because you're worried about what you have to monitor and what people are going to say. But it was the best decision we made because family members now can come on and comment about what they've read or comment directly online. We had a story about a Marine that had been killed in combat. One of the comments that came back was from his mom, and she wrote the most moving comment as a response to his story, far better than the story that we told. And those channels would have never been available had we not made them available through all those different means.
I mean, I guess that's a good lead into where do you see this going in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years? I mean, how do you see communication changing as you want to bring your story to your audience?
We have to find ways to make it faster, lighter weight, easier to deliver. And really the hardest part we have now is coming up with fast enough ways to find and write the content. The mediums that we're using and the delivery methods we're using, we now have to catch up with, which is a good thing. And so we're going to keep leveraging those to find faster ways to do it.
And Debbie, how about, thank you first of all for helping us, all right? Just your agency's use of Adobe products. I mean, what do you like and what are your people telling you that they like about using Adobe?
Yeah, well, I think that it's so important that all of the tools work together seamlessly. You're getting used to kind of one palette and opportunity to use the tools, and it makes our workflow more streamlined, and it really drives our business. We couldn't be a creative firm without using the Adobe suite of materials to deliver all of our products. They work well. They give us a lot of opportunity to be creative and focus on the creative, and that's what we're about, and let the tools just be our mechanical way of getting there. And when they work seamlessly, it's all great, and we get to be really creative and do some great stuff. Okay.
Thank you both so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Great story. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a great story, really.